Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I want you to picture a place at the very top of the globe. For centuries, it's basically been this silent, untouched realm covered in miles of absolute, impenetrable ice. But well, that era is completely over. Right now, as we speak, that frozen frontier is rapidly turning into the site of a brand new and honestly, incredibly dangerous global race. We're talking about the Arctic, of course. And as we're going to see throughout this explainer, the rapid melting of this region is setting the stage for one of the most massive geopolitical shifts of our time.
You know, for the longest time, we really only talked about the melting Arctic as a symbol of climate change. But as that ice quickly recedes, it's revealing a pretty startling new reality. This massive ecological shift is literally unlocking a totally unprecedented battleground. It is quite literally the gateway to a trillion-dollar treasure. We're looking at a fierce, high-stakes competition for gold, for natural gas, for totally new global shipping routes, and ultimately, absolute military dominance. So what exactly is making every major superpower so desperate to claim this melting north?
Here is exactly what we're looking at today. We'll explore this new global battleground, dig into that trillion-dollar treasure, check out the Northern Sea Route, break down the geopolitical cold rush, and finally ask, is this a warming or just global greed? Let's dive right in.
Part 1. The new global battleground. From silence to a strategic standoff.
To really understand the intense geopolitical tension we're seeing today, we've got to look at the sheer scale of the wealth hidden under that ice. These numbers are actually staggering. The Arctic holds an estimated 13% of the world's undiscovered oil, and natural gas, a massive 30%. Just let that sink in for a second. Nearly a third of the entire planet's untapped natural gas is sitting right up there. For decades, it was completely out of reach, locked away. But as the ice thaws, this huge energy reserve is suddenly accessible, and it's kicking off an absolute international frenzy.
But here's the thing. It's definitely not just about fossil fuels. The Arctic's hidden vault has a massive untapped stockpile of other precious resources too. We're talking vast deposits of gold and diamonds. But maybe the most crucial prize for the 21st century, rare earth metals. These are the absolutely essential components for driving our future tech. Everything from your smartphone to electric vehicles and advanced military hardware. Literally, whoever controls these deposits kind of controls the technological future.
So why is all of this exploding right now? Well, it comes down to a really critical multiplier, 4. The Arctic region is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. Historically, nations fought over blue gold, like water and ocean access, and black gold, meaning oil. But because of this hyper-accelerated melting rate, this previously unreachable white gold is suddenly exposed and totally up for grabs. The literal physical barrier that kept the superpowers out is just dissolving into the ocean.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Northern Sea Route, changing global trade forever.
It turns out the resources buried beneath the ice are really only half the story. The other half is logistics. When you compare traditional maritime routes with the newly emerging Northern Sea Route, or NSR, it's a drastic, game-changing shift. The traditional path from Europe to Asia forces cargo ships all the way down through the Suez Canal, which takes months. But the NSR? It cuts right across the warming Arctic Ocean, offering a massive 40% reduction in travel distance. We are talking about transit times dropping from months down to just weeks. It's a fundamental rewiring of global shipping.
And you can probably guess the financial ripple effect here. Bypassing the Suez Canal completely eliminates dependency on traditional, crowded global bottlenecks. It doesn't just save precious time, it saves millions of dollars in fuel costs per single voyage. In the world of international trade, finding a massive efficiency hack like this is revolutionary. This is a shortcut that is absolutely going to dictate the future of the global economy.
Naturally, an economic shortcut this huge has triggered an incredibly high-stakes rivalry. You essentially have two competing visions clashing right now. On one hand, Russia wants absolute, total control over the Northern Sea Route, basically treating it as an internal waterway. On the other hand, you have China pushing aggressively to establish what it calls a polar Silk Road, aiming to integrate the entire Arctic into its massive global trade network.
And that leads us straight into Section 4, the geopolitical cold rush. The chessboard heats up.
With so much wealth and strategic advantage hanging in the balance, the militarization of the Arctic is well underway. Russia has made some incredibly decisive, aggressive moves to lock down its backyard. They're actually out there reactivating and modernizing old, abandoned Soviet-era military bases in the snow. Plus, To guarantee they dominate these freezing waters, they've built the world's largest fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers. And guys, these aren't just civilian research boats. These are heavy strategic assets built to carve through the ice and project absolute power.
Now, looking at the other side of the board, NATO and the United States are absolutely not sitting this one out. Western powers are actively stepping up their own presence to match this intensity. We're seeing way more military drills in these sub-zero waters, fresh strategic deployments, and a firm refusal to be left behind in this race. Both sides are digging in, creating a highly sensitive, heavily armed standoff right at the top of the world.
And then we have this genuinely fascinating geopolitical loophole. China, despite technically having zero literal borders touching the Arctic Ocean, has self-declared a brand new status, a near-Arctic state. By officially giving themselves this title, they've effectively forced their way into the game. It gives them the diplomatic cover they need to stake their own claims, run research operations, and invest heavily in the region's infrastructure. It's a very clever, very bold move.
It's wild to look at how fast this conflict has escalated. Back in the Cold War era, it was mostly isolated surface outposts and silent submarines playing cat and mouse. Today, we've got nuclear icebreaker fleets and these unprecedented near-Arctic declarations. But the really crazy part is where this is heading in the near future. The fight is literally moving downward. Nations are arguing over the ocean floor itself, trying to prove the actual seabed is an extension of their own sovereign borders. It's a literal land grab happening miles underwater.
Finally, Section 5. Warning or global greed, the ultimate cost.
As we wrap this up, we have to look past the military hardware and the crazy trade statistics and bring this back to humanity as a whole. We are facing a pretty stark dilemma here. Is this newfound trillion-dollar wealth going to be the spark that triggers the next major global conflict? Or is it possible the world will somehow find the political will to put greed aside and unite to protect one of the most highly sensitive ecological zones on our planet?
Because the biggest takeaway from all of this information is that the Arctic cold rush isn't just some abstract ecological theory or future sci-fi speculation anymore. It's happening, right now. This race for energy, for rare earth metals, and for control over that massive maritime shortcut will undoubtedly dictate international relations, global trade, and military strategy for decades to come.
I want to leave you with this one final provocative thought as we watch this frozen chessboard thaw out. As the ice completely vanishes and the true value of the North is unlocked, will ultimate control over the Arctic be the single deciding factor that crowns the next global superpower? Think about that for a second. The answer is literally being written right now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.